issue is if 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million people have their jobs disrupted, and we see the direction everything is going and how quickly it's going. What are you going to do with them?
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Self, and welcome to Career Live on a Thursday morning, 7:30. It's the 4th of the month, I believe. I'm glad to have you with us. We're going to be talking about how do you manage the flow of information that's going to affect your career. Mark Cuban was on Bloomberg, and he made those and other comments about the rapid pace of change and the fact that over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, we're going to see more change than we've seen in the last 30 years. And a lot of this is going to affect your job, and it's going to affect your ability to advance your career. So today we want to talk about how do we keep up with the pace of change. I mean, it's so fast. Big companies know it's coming. There are probably 50 to 100,000 jobs that corporations right now are holding just to see how automation and the automation of automation will impact those positions. And they're not going to fill them if they don't need to. And of course, as in a public company, that's what a CEO is supposed to do. He's supposed to be a fiduciary for his shareholders, and filling a bunch of jobs that he's only then going to have to pay more money for layoffs later is not a good strategy. And so, we're seeing the beginnings of a massive tectonic shift. And the really important thing is that you have to start getting ready now if you're in one of those areas that could be affected. And that goes for a lot of different people. Anybody that's analyzing data, anybody that's, someone said that one of the boring, better paying jobs in life was an actuarial. And the truth is, you're going to be able to just plug data in, it's going to bring it back out. Cuban said the other day that if he was advising his kids on a college degree today, it would not be technology, software engineering, or something like that. He believes that liberal arts degrees are going to be absolutely essential because people who studied philosophy, English literature, my friend Peter, who was a Johns Hopkins grad who studied history and is quite a history buff, those are going to be the people who bring things to the table, a different perspective than software engineers and data analysts. And that's what's going to be, because the machine is going to do all the work that those people used to do. Cuban said, if the machine is working for you, you're okay. If you find yourself working for the machine, you're probably going to lose your job. So let's talk today about how you can manage the information in terms of the job market. It is a fire hose of information that's coming out. We struggle to keep up with it, just like I know you do. This is a challenge that is unparalleled in modern history when it comes to the workforce. So a bunch of people lose jobs. In the past, the politicians would come up and talk about jobs programs and adult education and community college, but so many jobs are going to be disrupted. What are these people going to do? How are we going to absorb them back into the economy? Particularly older workers who will find themselves in a barrel of deep you-know-what, because they always thought, look, I've always been able to bounce back. I've always been able to handle it. Everything I've always done in the past has always worked. This time it is truly different because we're seeing such a major change in automation. It's hard to get your hands around it. It absolutely is. When you start digging down and interviewing some of these people, as I've been doing recently, it is absolutely astounding what's going to happen. And there are going to be a lot of people in the job market, and job training won't work. What are we going to train them for? So if you're trying to stay out of that awful conundrum, now is the time, because we're about to enter a period that's just of change that's just unparalleled in our history. And what's really bad, and I'm not a big politician, but neither of the presidential candidates have really a clue on what to do, and they're going to look short term, and what we need right now is long term. So let me tell you briefly about myself. If you're new to these broadcasts or live streams, I started my career in news. I spent 27 years in global executive search. So I bring a perspective to career management and job search strategies that a lot of coaches don't have. I have sat through thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews. And I've listened to people just droll on about their job, loaded with jargon, loaded with corporate speak. And I just sat there and kept thinking, I'd almost rather have a root canal without xylocaine. So I've been doing job search advisory work now for about 10 years. And I will tell you that a lot of people are getting some very, very bad advice. And I'm not talking about because I'm a superior coach. I'm talking about from the recruiting point of view. The other thing I've done that a lot of people haven't done is I've successfully navigated 4 major career changes. When you start off in the news business and you end up in global executive search and you've leased aircraft and done hospital turnarounds and been a business developer along the way, that's a lot of change. And I've been very successful. So if you want some advice on career change, I'm happy to try to help you. Okay. Now, this is something that I've been saying, and the people who are regular to the live streams, let's see now, what have I done wrong? I'm getting an alert. It's good news this morning. I didn't forget to unplug the sound or put myself on the screen. Thank you for that, Peter. I've been talking about career management, that it must become part of your daily routine. And one of the reasons it must be part of your daily routine is because of the flow of information. If you're not trying to keep up with this on a daily basis, you know what it's akin to? It's akin to waiting till 3 weeks before you file your taxes, and all of your revenue and all of your expenses and all of the accounting transactions that you've happened in the last 12 months, you now try to load them up into your Intuit software system so your accountant can get you filed. And that is painful. It's awful. So I will tell you, I've learned my lesson on that. And one of the things I would tell you is don't do that in your career. Don't think you can sit back and wait and do it at the last minute and be successful. This time you won't. This time it's different, because what got you here won't get you there. You absolutely must stay current with changes in recruiting technology and employer expectations. And oh, by the way, there's another whole issue. And that issue is you must pay attention to how we work and how the whole structure of the job market is changing and what jobs will be viable. If you're a software engineer, you're going to see you're already seeing substantial challenges in finding new work. Now, if you're at the higher end, where you're doing the really sophisticated stuff, really groundbreaking stuff, you're going to be fine for the foreseeable future. But if you're a low-end coder, automation can do it faster and better than you can. Mark Cuban talks about when he was early in his career, when he was a coder, it was if this, then what? You had to make guesses. And he said, the good ones were pretty good at guessing. Well, now the automation of automation with neural networks and deep learning and machine learning, these are already driving significant changes. I mean, translators that, on your cell phone, some of these features that you already use and you just take for granted, that was an early staged example of how automation and how some of these AI products are being used. I mean, Siri sounds like such an innocent, sweet name. Well, let me tell you something. Siri may become the face of the whole technology boom that drives you from your job. Okay, so you've got to begin tracking employment data in your field to see what's happening. Who's being laid off? What kind of jobs are vacant? What jobs are vacant because they're not even trying to fill them because they may do away with them? You've got to dig down and look inside some important trends because there's a lot of information there. People in the financial services business, and one of the best I know is Peter Piccinini in New Jersey, and absolutely, really does deep dives, does a lot of reading, trying to anticipate the trends for his clients. And that's what you're going to have to do for your career. You're going to have to look for these buried insights. You have to adapt or die. And I know that sounds so melodramatic, but it is absolutely the truth, and we're already seeing it. People in technology are really struggling to find jobs. If you're a carpenter, a plumber, if you do highway infrastructure, if you build bridges, you're going to be able to continue to work. There will be a return on investment for people who do that kind of work, because computers are not going to be able to lift steel, weld steel. They're not going to be able to frame houses. They're doing it with concrete, but you still have to have workers on site to be able to do that. So those people will have jobs. There will be a return on those jobs for businesses that employ the people. But people who are in the different industries, if you're an executive assistant, unless you're handling a lot of high-end logistics for your boss, a lot of the appointment setting and everything else will be automated. A lot of the form filling will be automated. A lot of the insurance back office work will be automated. So you kind of start to see how many people are going to be displaced who have no skills other than what they've been doing: entering data, managing data, organizing days, filing, stuff like this. AI will do it faster and better. And so you have to begin thinking, how do I move myself into a new area where I can survive when everybody else who stood there, with a kind of a blank look on their face saying, what just happened? What just happened? Well, it's not a slow cart wreck, because it's speeding up. The large companies already know what's about to happen, and they're just not talking about it. Okay, so let's talk about layoffs here. Layoffs are expanding beyond tech, media, and finance. Finance and retail are also cutting. Tech giants like Meta and Google are still cutting. Last year, the tech industry lost 257,000 jobs. And that's going to continue. They've already said they will continue to do isolated cuts and reductions in force to be able to maintain a cash flow that will let them fund technology development that will take more jobs. Kind of an interesting thing, isn't it? I'm like the dog chasing its tail. Spotify, Citigroup, Amazon, Charles Schwab, Staff Overflow, which is a tech company, Flexport, which is a comprehensive logistics company. A lot of these people are really struggling a little bit, and they're reducing the workforce. Some, like Flexport, to get back, return to profitability. Look at Roku. Farmers Insurance is laying off. T-Mobile laid off 5,000 people. CVS, 5,000. The list goes on. You're not hearing about it as much because technically the economy is healthy. Theoretically, the economy is healthy until you go to the grocery store and wait, just hang around and buy gas in about 6 months. So things are really shifting. And so you have to begin being very purposeful, being very intentional about how you go about positioning yourself for the future. You can't just sit there and say, oh, my job's going to be okay. I can tell you my job of providing information to job search people and coaching them in terms of giving them the information and telling them what they have to do. I'm going to be replaced by a bot, a highly sophisticated AI-generated person who's going to give all this information and give it for free. Somebody's going to add that as a value-added benefit for them to join their job board site or something else. So what do? I will be able to sustain myself, hopefully, by creating value in networks and community, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's easier said than done. Let's create a community. What's the trigger to get people to join the community? So anything you do to try to reposition yourself, it's not a walk in the park. So you have to really think ahead. You have to know what your options are. You have to understand what the threats are to your future. And then you have to say, what can I do to protect myself, protect my interest, be able to support my family, and stay out of that trench of tsunami water that's running at about 1,000,000 miles an hour. If you get too close and fall in, you're toast. Okay. I think this is a good way to look at it. People who are in the market know that early in the morning and late at night, you've got analysts looking over information on companies, looking for opportunities for investment. And so people are posting notes and trying to churn the till. You now have to be the market research analyst for you. You have to develop the expertise. You've got to discover what tools are available to me to monitor to the changes in technology that could threaten my job. You got to monitor the market and industry trends, because a lot of things they're already out there squawking at us, telling us, man, something's not right here, and you better pay attention. Please don't go into the weekend and say, it will not affect me, because a lot of people in this marketplace, and I'm just going to make a wild guess, but I would probably say 50 to 60% of the workforce is going to see some level of disruption. And Mark Cuban poses the question very, very succinctly. What do we do with those people? Job training, would you train them for what? That's going to be the big question. That's what we should be having elections about, the future of this country and how we're going to deal with these incredible problems. You're at a time when you have record deficits, unsettled geopolitical markets, and then we have this kind of technology change that will really destabilize economies. I mean, we're ripe for just incredible turmoil. And the people who will get through this are going to be the people who say, that train is on the tracks. I got two choices. I can be on the train or I can be on the tracks. Okay, here are some sources you can use today. Now, these are not secret, CIA-sponsored data machines. Business Insider, constantly, they're not saying, pay attention, this story is going to save your life. It's just one in many. If you look at it, the old expression, death by 1,000 cuts. Well, if you start reading these stories and making notes and looking for trends and looking for ways that this stuff fits together, it's there. It's there. Sometimes you have to really look at it hard. Sometimes it doesn't immediately present itself. Sometimes 3 or 4 weeks later, you wake up in the middle of the night going, holy moly, I get it. But you have to start paying attention to the information in that context. Now, for the more immediate tactical responses, there's a site called layoffs.fyi. There's also the Government Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, WARN, and you can actually go to the government's, it's WARN Government, WARN.gov, and they will give you a list of all of the state workforce commissions. And so you pick the state where you currently reside. The law says that if you're in a location that employs more than 100 people, they have to give you 90 days notice about layoffs. And so that's a good way on a short-term tactical basis to give yourself a little bit of a heads up. You sometimes can understand what's happening to your company by watching the warngov.gov site. There's a great story about a woman who was called into her boss's office, and she said, "I'm really sorry. I've got to lay you off today." And the girl said, "Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate you telling me." And she said, "Wait a minute, you don't sound like you're really upset." She said, "I'm really not. I'm really happy. I saw 3 or 4 months ago the Warren notice, and I started looking for another job." And she said, "I just found out about it at 5 o'clock yesterday." She said, "It's been on the government posting site for 65 to 70 days, and I've already found another job. So thank you. It's been nice." Well, that's a short-term scenario. That's not, that's almost like stuff for TV stories and feel-good stories. But if you watch it, that's how it can work for you. Another useful source is the Wall Street Journal. The news side, they have some really insightful things. Again, they're not publishing necessarily comprehensive articles on this is what's happening and this is what you got to do. And it's little bits and pieces, little snapshots of all the things that are happening that you're going to have to understand and try to put together as it affects you, as it relates to you. Now, you also want to monitor industry publications, but do not rely on association magazines. There's garbage, and then there's association magazines. Association magazines may tell you about what some new company's done in innovation, and it's all about pounding on the chest and saying, "Aren't we a great industry? We're really secure. Don't worry." No, but there are a lot of industry publications that give you insights as to what's happening. I mean, if you're in healthcare, you're watching Becker's, you're watching Modern Healthcare, because they're giving you those little 1,000 cuts every week about people being laid off, about people running afoul of regulatory compliance, how people are trying to kind of squeeze a penny out here and end up in trouble with the feds and in jail. So this is really something that I think is just so important. And I really want to encourage you, don't wait to act until it is too late. Don't wait to act until the horse is out of the barn and 3 counties over. Or don't wait to have a picture of your volunteer fire department when you're fighting a fire. Okay, this is actually a training photo at a fire school, and they always take one of these photos at the end. But I just think Seth Godin shared this. I think it's absolutely priceless. Here's a bunch of firemen taking a picture, and the house is burning down behind them. But this is the message that I'm trying to convey. Don't wait to do this when the house is on fire. Now, the big why. Why do we need to be, John, why in God's name do we need to even be considering this? Why do we need to worry about this? We got so many other things to worry about. Yes, we do. But the changes that are coming in the next 5 to 10 years will dwarf all the progress we've experienced over the past 30 years. Now, when you really, and I really believe that. I mean, I've really thought about that. Mark Cuban is not the only person saying that. Mark Cuban's a very smart, savvy investor. But he's not a futurist, and he's just one other guy who thinks he sees what's happening based on his experiences and his conversations with the Fortune 100 CEOs. And people will talk to Mark Cuban. So this is something that I think is really, really important. You have to understand that this time it really, truly is different. In the past, we've had great changes in our country. And I know through the Industrial Revolution, for the people then, it was like incredible change. But there were still plenty of jobs. And there were plenty of ways for these people to be absorbed into the economy. Yes, did certain people go through some pretty tough times during some of the Industrial Revolutionary cycles? Yes, they probably did. But there was almost all got absorbed with other jobs and other ways. This time, there's going to be a problem absorbing the jobs, because a lot of traditional positions that hired, people, at lower levels, people who were the salt of the earth. And if we think we have a lot of people angry today because the government's not paying attention to them, or that people aren't paying attention and they feel like they're bearing the burden of society's change on their backs, it's only going to get worse, because a lot of those people are going to be the people who lose their jobs because automation comes in and takes over. Now, you can't sit around and wait, okay? And say, okay, the light's going to change. You can't do this. I love this picture. This light never turns green. and I guess the message I'm bringing you today is based on, and I'm just looking at a small slice, but based on what I'm seeing and all the stuff I'm reading, and if you looked at my reading table, you would say, my God, does he spend a lot of money on Amazon? I'm trying to stay up to date, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. And that's what you need to try to do. And you can't sit back and wait for somebody to feed it to you. You can't wait for the light to turn green and go, okay, I've got it now. If you wait for somebody to tell you that your job and your life is on fire, you're in trouble. It's like if you wait to start networking when the day you lose your job, you're in trouble. You waited too long. You're going to have to go back and apply online. You're going to have to go through that misery, that absolute, incredible, god-awful misery of submitting, 50, 100, 150 job applications that you spend an hour to 2 hours on each an hour to 2 hours on each one to get one offer. So listen, if you don't take anything else away from this session today, you are solely accountable for your brand. You are solely accountable for your ability to support yourself and your family. Nobody else is going to come save you. It's up to you. You have to be informed. You have to pay attention to the trends. We're going to be here to help. We're going to be here to give support, encouragement. We're going to try to stay ahead of the information flow. But I got to tell you, there are companies that have staffs of 150, 200 people in research struggling to keep up today. So this is really a really interesting and challenging time in our development. Think about this. Think about it. Let's try to rephrase this in a different way. Imagine the pain and frustration that you're going to feel if you're one of the 10 million people who've lost their jobs to AI automation and there are no replacement openings. Now, we sit there and you go, no, that's not possible. There will be something that evolves to take care of these people, and these people will be absorbed back into the market. Doing what? If a lot of the old line jobs are gone, how are we going to create new jobs out of what, whole cloth? So there are going to be ways that some of the people will survive this, and they are now trying to position themselves to do something else that will be less threatening. You may not make as much money, but paying 85 or 90% of your monthly nut versus 0% is probably attractive. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. I hope this has been helpful information today. I want to tell you about a couple of things we're doing next week on Lunch and Learn, how to deal with the nefarious ways companies are pushing you to quit, including bogus performance improvement plans, and we'll be talking about some strategies. Some of the big consulting firms are already doing that. They're saying, oh yeah, your performance is really not bad, but we've been told that we have to criticize you and get you out because that way we don't have to have the same expense and cost of the layoff plus the bad publicity. On Wednesday office hours, their problem is your opportunity. This past week, in the past several weeks, I've done presentations to networking groups. And I can't tell you, it was like I was talking to a group of people that had been programmed by the same computer. I do this, I'm looking for this, they tell everybody what they do. And it's the classic elevator speech. And the elevator speech is about, this is what I do, this is what I want. And nobody is telling me why I should hire them. And so we're going to talk about that. There's no emotion. There's no selling. It's like Sergeant Joe Friday, just the facts, ma'am. No passion or insight. And so we're going to talk again about, in office hours, about that first impression that you make. And I'm a big believer that you have to be video sophisticated, and I'm not holding myself up as as this great example, but you have to be video sophisticated because that's where a lot of the first impressions are going to occur. And first impressions can mean everything, can make the difference between getting a job and not getting a job. And so having a boring, memorized, elevator statement, it's like you've come off it's like a computer's talking to me. That's not going to work. So there are a lot of people, that's what they're doing. So their problem is your opportunity. I want to thank you for joining us today. I actually finished on time. So I really want you to know how much I appreciate you being here. If you have feedback or if you have questions, join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time, where we have your career questions. We got a big following that's building on that. And when you say building on online following, sometimes 200 or 300 people is a great accomplishment. But we got a lot of people watch the your career community on replay. I have a friend, Ron Thomas, and several of us watch his Friday morning 8 a.m. CEO series conversation. And so he may have 10 or 15 people watching it live, but by the week's end, he's got 2,000 or 3,000 views. And so that's my goal, to be where Ron Thomas is today. He's a great guy. He's a great, kind friend. And he started his career. He was born in a small town in South Carolina. His father was a taxi driver, and he's worked his way up to be the CHRO for Martha Stewart, and then decided he'd always wanted to work overseas. And so he's living his dream. And he's doing it in a way that he has a niche that he can't be replaced by a computer. Some of the stuff he does can be done by computer, but he does extraordinary planning sessions. He's a big educator, and he does a lot of live symposiums. And so Ron, in addition to having a boatload of air miles out of Dubai, and he's based in Dubai. And so you watch him on Friday mornings. It's a lot of insight. But that's what we're trying to do. So tell your friends about what we're building here, and ask them to join our live streams here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and soon, hopefully, Instagram. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. And I hope you have a great week. End.